Well, hello there, everybody. How are y'all doing? Good to see you. A little bit of jamming out to it's a beautiful day far out. Welcome everyone. It is Friday, snowing rather heavily here. So, hey, you know, it's wintertime still. I think that furry critter doesn't know anything. Us humans, we're unique to say the least. So it's Friday. Thank you for dropping in and being a part of this. I speak favor over us all. Nothing missing, nothing broken. Someone wrote to me and said, "Why do you do that? That's weird." I said, "Well, you know what? There's an old proverb says that if you plant a seed, that when the need arises, you'll never be out of seeds. So it means it comes back." So anyway, we like that. And hello, chat room. How is everybody? I think I saw Brandon, Jackie, Loretta, Munchkin's in there. How you doing, Lori? Good to see you. Uh, who's else? Mark, good to see you. Voice by Stephanie Marie. Oh, wonderful. Well, now I know. All right, that's far out. DC and Trampus and Ann and John. Lucky, how you doing, brother? And Grace and Shirley and everybody else. Deborah Sloan, how are you, darling? True Seeker. Hey, listen, you may have saw in that's the snow plows, I think, or someone just went down the hill the wrong way. That, hold on one second here. Uh, well, I think that was the plow. I don't know. Jeez. Anyway, so as I wrote in the banner there, Ryder Lee, raised by giants, he's a part of this soul tribe, has been, and we love him and support him. Well, last night, unexpectedly, his father passed over. So just surround him with love, send his dad favor. It counts. It really does. I told you what we experienced here with Richie. I mean, I think it really does. If words, according to Lacerda, which I thought was so interesting, I slept on that. The words can penetrate these planes, these bubbles. And so we just send Ryder's father abundance of favor and peace. And Ryder, to you and your family, we love you and we send our love to you. And uh, hey, it's going to be okay. It's just part of the journey, but it's difficult. I lost both my parents, and it's that passing, that that thing that we're part of it, but I don't know about you. I don't really understand why. Why the necessity of time itself? It seems that memories are really, really important. And these memories, apparently, I don't know if they're fuel, if they're energy that we take with us into the ethereal realm, the spirit realm, whatever plane of consciousness or dimension it may be. So, I don't know, maybe it's part of the journey. Colleen, thank you. You sent me an email, which I thought was just far out. She was pointing out that in the Bible, um, the Bible says that there are unicorns. In fact, it says that God is not as strong as the unicorn. I think that's what I read right. I think that was correct, Colleen. Unicorns, I tell you. Mm-hmm. I didn't write it. I didn't write it. Um, I'm just telling you, I didn't write it. So this is a topic. Hey, Brandy, how you doing? Go all the way from Croatia. How you doing, Jeff? Good to see you. Robert V is in the house, and much love to you, Bonnie and Jan and Elderberry. Anyway, we shall continue. um, if you look at today, I think the number one thing that can be identified is the perception, good, evil, and then the association with that, good, evil, would be God, devil, Satan. And it so impacts our psyche. It's deep. Once it gets its tendrils in, you'd be surprised how even when severed, and you think those tendrils have withered and dried up, you're surprised to see the resiliency of such tendrils. And that's what I compare it to. The belief that there is this thing called Satan, and it is the antithesis of God. Now, if you read the Bible, it says that if this Satan exists, then it's a God. Now, that's very important to remember, because you get into this thing to where you say, well, there are absolutes. I don't know. Haven't found that to be the case in my life. There is probably the absolute of death. I mean, that is true, but I even believe that the way that one approaches death can be transcended. Instead of one of fear, the anxiety, the unknown, anticipation, to embrace it, welcome it, because it seems to be the potential out. But let's talk specifically how this construct affects us all. It affects individually, it affects groups, it affects communities, it affects governments, religion, philosophy, metaphysics, occultism. All of them are heavily embedded into this. And this is something that, when I was meditating on this, it became very clear. No matter what your magic is, no matter what you practice, no matter how you want to slice it and dice it, you're actually practicing a form of Christianity. Now, people will rile against that. Doesn't really matter. It is what it is. Because we believe that there is a God. We believe that there is a devil. We believe that there is a Satan. We believe that there is a Lucifer. We believe that there is a Jesus. We believe that there are angels, and we believe that there are demons. And no matter where your particular philosophy or ideology lies, it's within those parameters. It's true. Because the fact is, Satanism is just a different form of Christianity. Christianity must have Satanism in order to exist, and vice versa. It's really no more difficult than that. So I put together a few things for us to talk about on this subject, because once we get past this mind spell, we can begin to break through on other levels. And it's interesting because we study symbols here, we study sigils. The aware know exactly what I'm talking about. In fact, if you can't see the commonality, then study this, because you shall find the commonality. And it's there, it's staring you right in the face. What we're seeing here is probably one and the same. Now, that's a radical statement. I realize that. But let's just consider this, just the facts. So before the Bible was Sumer, approximately about 5,000 years before the Bible. Now, I think in 5,000 years, you would have if you were at this game, you should be able to perfect it. But apparently someone forgot the rules, because ultimately you can say the dead will always speak. The dead does speak. They do speak from the grave. So 5,000 years before there's this construct of a Bible. In Sumerian culture, there is no Satan, no devil, no Lucifer. We know that their pantheon deals with a number of gods, anywhere from the Anunnaki to, El, Enki, Enlil, Inanna. I mean, pick and choose. And it would appear that even those gods may be, in fact, transplants from ancient Hindu, the East belief. The West really doesn't have true access to the East, to the records. What we had in the West is that we had the purging of that. So no Satan, no Lucifer, no devil exists prior to Christianity. Christianity had to invent Satan and Lucifer in order to exist. Again, without the antithesis of the person, then the person really has no person each. So no Satan or Lucifer in the Old Testament, and I put a little askew there. We're going to get to that. Then you have no satanic Lucifer worship in the Old Testament. Good reason. They didn't exist. Nowhere within if you go back all the way to the so-called Torah of the Hebrews records, and you have to understand something here about history, because the West really does not know who the Hebrews worshiped. And my proof of this is one called Flavius Titus. Titus was the one who burnt Jerusalem to the ground. He also destroyed the temple, the second temple, and he also was the one who, and you have to think about this one, where he went into the Holy of Holies and took the so-called heavenly utensils of praise and worship, the menorah, the showbread. There's still monuments to this. You can look it up and you can see it. They paraded it into Rome. Well, which means then that what happened to the Jewish or the Hebrew God? That was where he inhabited. Well, it would appear that he wasn't there. But nevertheless, they also took all of the books, all of them. A lot of priests lost their heads. The Romans were not ones to debate about mercy. You did not fuck with the Romans. They would soon chop your head off, rape your woman right in front of you, and then disembowel her. Didn't matter to them. So they took with them all of these sacred writings. Interesting, because we lose track of them when they hit Rome. But oddly enough, in less than 200 years later, and that's how governments morph, suddenly this once huge empire that was polytheistic in its views, where the gods were concerned, suddenly becomes monotheistic and suddenly proclaims this God as God. And it's the same God of the Jews. Subsequently, the same God of the Muslims, all Abraham beliefs. Now, within these ancient writings, there isn't any Lucifer. Didn't exist. Was no Satan. Didn't exist. So that brings us to our next point. There's no satanic worship in the New Testament. None. Makes no reference to it. There's none. Why? Because it didn't exist. Both religions, Christianity and Satanism, are the same. Both of them have the same gods. Now, where we come to Lucifer, we're going to get into this a little bit more. That is the creation, the imagination of one Jerome. And in the Old Testament, where the word Satan shows up, it's never a noun. It's a small s. So just by these points alone, and we got others, no person of theology can come and argue this. I know their sources better than they do. Cost me a fucking fortune and, 50 years of my life. So this is important to me. And I know that if I have gone through this, there are others. And there will be yet other mores coming forth. Maybe they'll come across this because do your own research, do your own study. You'll come to the same conclusions. Now, let's continue with just the facts. Satanism was born out of modern day Christianity. It's a fact. Satanism has not, again, is a modern day invention. Cheers, everyone, on a day like this. Christianity made Satan a god and equal to God. See, the problem is when you borrow from a religion that's not yours and you try to change it, adapt it to your beliefs, it's going to bite you in the ass eventually. And this is one of those eventuallys. It's in the book of Isaiah, by the way. Satanism is a new religion organized in the 20th century. It's just that new. Prior, there was no organized satanic religion. Didn't exist. The interesting thing is, when polled, they find many modern-day Satanists were in fact Christians. The vast majority came out of Christianity. I contend they just exchanged one God for the other. Satan is not Lucifer. Lucifer is not Satan or the devil. But yet today, people think that they're, synonyms of each other. No. Christians worship Lucifer as God. I showed that already. I mean, go back on the videos. It's right there. I didn't do it. They said it. They wrote their words. Lucifer is a Latin word. The church invented these beings to control the population and to extort money. You see, if you've got the devil and you've got this Satan thing, Lucifer was not so much used. There was apparently some real intrepidation and fear with the church using or invoking Lucifer. Satan, not a problem. The devil, not a problem. But Lucifer seems to have and still holds a high position of great esteem within the Catholic Church, which is Christianity. Now, I've had people say, well, I'm not a Catholic. So what are you saying? Well, I'm a Christian. What are you saying? The Catholics, you got your religion from them. All right. So, and they extorted the kings, the monarchs. Everywhere where the church went, there was extortion right behind it because you had to pay the church. God wants his cut. From the first recognition, the records show, which was from the church, of worshiping the devil And this is where it gets really tricky, because the devil is inserted so many times, again, to be synonymous with Satan. No, but not Lucifer. That's one of those, well, why not? Do they know something that they're not telling the rest of us? You know, what if they captured Lucifer? What if this other god captured Lucifer, who didn't exist until Jerome channeled him? I mean, we're going to read a little bit more about that, but somehow that name came in, and it's interesting how quickly that name took on a certain personification. Just the facts. It was the excommunicated priest, bishops, etc., uh, laymen, but primarily priest, bishops in those categories, who challenged the church and wrote about what they had learned from the church concerning the devil, Satan, and Lucifer. Appears that we're dealing, in one sense of the word, a trinity. In other words, on the org chart, well, it seems like Lucifer is at the top spot. Lucifer is God by Christian origins and separate from Satan. That's interesting. We've seen that, documented it here. Millions have been tortured to death. It was not the devil or Satan or Lucifer, it was humans, but not in Lucifer's name or Satan's name. It was always in Jesus' name. Still, no one wants to address that. Now you'll hear the church, the apologetics, that come back and say, well, they were just ignorant. Really? Torture, sexual deviation of torturing primarily women by church fathers, priests, bishops, popes. Oh, that's right. We can't say in Jesus' name because the name didn't exist. Well, ain't that special? That must be Satan. But anyway, what was that name? Satan or Lucifer don't want your soul. They don't want any soul. There's only one side that wants your soul. Here's a humdinger. No actual writings exist of words of Satan or Lucifer. Now, Jerome, in his forgery and whatever the hell he was doing in that cave, what he put in, wow, I mean, if you're looking at this from a magician's point of view, this is high magic. Because what this one man did was rewrite history of the future, not the past. He rewrote the future. Are you hearing me? This reality is not supposed to exist. This is an illusion here, but it's a strong spell. No words in the Bible of Satan or Lucifer demanding worship or sacrifice. None. Not a single word. But yet today, the vast majority of people that have religious beliefs believe that this doesn't matter. They will tell you, oh no, it's been written about. The Bible says they're our enemy. Now, if the passage written by Jerome is removed, from the Bible, it does not mention a single word about Lucifer. There's no Lucifer in the Hebrew belief system. Doesn't exist. But this spell is so powerful that even if you looked at the past, you're only going to see the mimicry of what they want you to see. You see, this Lacertus got me to thinking. When I became a Christian, and you have to read that book every day, because that book begins to create an illusion that becomes real. Everything that you see from it is filtered through that lens. That's a hell of a way to look at it, isn't it? So here it is today. Hollywood's made millions, maybe billions on it. I mean, we know that the church has. If it wasn't for Lucifer or Satan or the devil, they'd be broke motherfuckers. I mean, that's all I can tell you. They wouldn't have a pot to piss in. But when you extort on the fear of the spell that you are promoting, well, Jesus has been very good for me. Yeah. I always thought that Jesus' character was against about being rich. So all entries of such manner are in fact modern day insertions. Son of a bitch. Without Satanism, Christianity cannot exist, and vice versa. They feed off of each other, one supporting the other. Now, the implications here are huge. I mean, as an adult, you're free to believe whatever you want. You can believe in unicorns because the Bible said so. Bible, all right. So when I look at this, then that means all people who worship Satan, they're just a different brand of Christian. No matter what demon you call to or worship, it's a Christian demon. And no matter how far you want to look back and go, oh, this is in the Kabbalah, and this is where we get this, it's still Christian. Think about what the fuck Titus did. He walked out with us. Do you don't think within a couple of 100 years that you could really figure out some shit? I'll guarantee you can. And it's just like the current politics today. They can be bought off. Well, because, listen, we'll make you rich here. They don't understand. You see, once you get above this, yeah, there's no escaping. So, think about this. They can be bought off in ways that we can't even understand. So then you have this amazing thing that took place where it wasn't enough to have these books. And I contend that when the children of Israel, the Hebrews, they died off. Children of Israel came in supposedly after the event in Egypt. And when they left captivity of Babylon, they were the Jews. But I contend this, that, and I get this from the book of Nehemiah, because you have to really understand what this Nehemiah character was about. But my point is, I believe they left with some knowledge, particularly from the Babylonians. The Babylonians were into some deep stuff. I say that they were in contact in league with extraterrestrials. They understood things. And I contend that that was taken out stolen and brought back into Israel, which, by the way, was broken and desolated in both its parts. So Titus gets a hold of this, brings it back, and the Romans, they had this interesting thing about how they adapted things. They pulled in the Greek Roman, but they also pulled in the Egyptian. Then they had the Macedonians coming in, and we are the result of that. They created these beings of which today people worship, pray to, or devoted to when they're in the same boat. Maybe different sides of the boat, but they're still in the same boat. Now, got some other documents in here that will help point that out. This one is, it's probably one of the best books in how this was created, why it was created, and how today it is a sickness of humanity. It just is. Now, you can give me the virtues of what one religion is to the other, but you also have to face the facts of what it does. So Satan, Christianity's other god, this is legend, myth, lore, or lie. This is a historical and biblical proof of how man created Satan and made Satan to be a god. This was written by James R. Brayshaw, and I do have this, and I want to get into just the table of contents, because this is where this book, and once you get through it, if you're a person like I am who is hunger for the knowledge of how did this insanity begin, because this insanity that we have in the last 2,000 years is an altered dimensional reality that should have never been. Imagine a world where there was no Christianity, there was no Islam, there was no Judaism, there was no Hinduism. Imagine a world, John Lennon wrote about it. What would it be like? Now, there would be those who would argue, well, it would be complete madness and, anarchy. And it's that right now. Don't tell me that somehow your religion is going to teach me morality. Morality is not taught by religion. It's taught by empathy. Anyway, I digress. So chapter 1, and now you think about world leaders. I contend most world leaders worship Satan. They don't worship no Jesus. They don't worship no Christian God. They don't even know who the Christian God is. The vast majority in power today worship Satan. All their actions, all their deeds prove that point to be true. They lie, they deceive, they rob, they steal. They accuse falsely. Those are Satanists. They're actually playing out the exact role, personality, and character of Satan. So thank you, Mr. Joe Biden. Thank you, Donald Trump. Satanist. And you can add a bunch in the Senate and the Congress and every different place. There are more Satanists in the world pretending and portraying to be of a belief, but they're not. Their actions, their thoughts, their deeds betray them. So, considering why we have a doctrine of Satan. Chapter 2, Satan, evil force at creation or man created with a potential for evil. Chapter 3, God, creator of all things good and evil. Again, how does a perfect God create evil? Why would a perfect God want to create evil? Chapter 4, the first use of the word Satan in the English version of the scriptures. Chapter 5, if Satan exists, he is a god according to Yahweh. Dun, 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 dun. Chapter 6, evil and lying spirits. How God is the origin. 7, the post-exilic Persian influence on the idea of Satan. Ain't that special? Chapter 8, Lucifer's fall in Isaiah 14, explaining the myth. We're about to get into that one real deep. Chapter 10, the Satan in Job, human adversary or evil incarnate. Oh, I forgot chapter 9. Is Satan the anointed cherub from Ezekiel 28? Chapter 12, the serpent in the garden, understanding the foundations of why we believe a myth. Chapter 13, luckiest number out there, by the way, answering the serpent in the garden questions. And finally, what's next for Satan's Christianity, other God? Now, there is a document, and I want to give full credit to this. This was a document by this individual, Frank W. Nelty, actually done in 1995. It was a paper he wrote on the name Lucifer has never belonged to Satan. There was some editing and revisions on 2017. This is one of the best documents. If you are struggling or if you have family members and they're attacking you on this, this is the document you want. You should memorize it. All right. In most of the English versions of the Bible, the name Lucifer appears only one time, in Isaiah 14:12. This verse reads, "How are you fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning?" Isaiah 14:12. Not the word Lucifer. Now the word Lucifer is not an English word, but a Latin word. And so the question is, who gave the world this Latin name, Lucifer? And why did they give us this Latin name? Now, little background story, what this is really talking about is the king, and I'll think of his name here a second, not Lucifer, but hey. So let's get into this. How we come to have this name Lucifer. In 382 AD, Pope Damasus commissioned the scholar Jerome to make an official revision of the many Latin versions of the Bible that were floating around the Catholic Church at that time. And this is where, for most Christians, they don't understand. This Bible they hold today, it's good for starting a fire with, but as far as just authenticity of originality, no. But anyway, in the beginnings of Christianity, there were lots of different Bibles because there wasn't one that existed. There were books, there were writings. And none of these writings, in many cases, were ever validated, all authenticated, but it was part of the belief system. See, Christianity is really paganism. And so when you say that Satanism is equal to Christianity, well, Christianity is equal to paganism because that's where it came from. But I digress. So Jerome, because the church is paying him, he's got his sack of gold, and, he's off to the Holy Land. He booked the tour, got a 10% discount because he booked, the whole thing. And he went off to a cave in Bethlehem. You got to think for yourself, well, what the hell's up? What was this whole Jerusalem, this whole area looked like? It was a freaking desolate area. Remember what Titus did. All right, where he proceeded to make his translation, the Old Testament, part of which he supposedly based on the Hebrew text. And one of the reasons why, it is said why he went back to Judea is because the air is dry there. And if in fact he carried this, it means he had an entourage with him. Don't carry this by yourself. So apparently he went with many, 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 many books. Who knows? But in practice, he said, so where he proceeded to make his translation, the Old Testament part of which he supposedly based on the Hebrew text. But Jerome was never versed in the Hebraic tongue. But in practice, Jerome based his Old Testament very largely on the Greek language, the Septuagint version 50 of the Old Testament, which Origen, we talked about him with the Liber Lilith, had produced about 140 years earlier while in Caesarea. And may I say, Origen never saw this Jesus. He had a vision. No, he was a convert. He was biased. Well, let's continue with Jerome. So by 405 AD, Jerome had completed his work, which today is known as the Latin Vulgate Bible, the real Bible, not the King James. The Latin Vulgate Bible is the real Bible. It is far from a particularly accurate translation of the original text. Rather, it is an interpretation of thought put into idiomatic, graceful Latin, but an interpretation of thought only. It is only good when the translator has a perfect understanding of the thoughts he is translating. But if a translator has a flawed understanding of the thoughts he is trying to translate, then his interpretation of thoughts result in a very flawed and misleading translation. So think about this. There's no King James Bible. Most of the people, the peasants, the working class, they didn't have a Bible. They couldn't afford it. In fact, there were probably very few copies of the Latin Vulgate Bible. So, for 1,000 years, this Vulgate translation was without a rival, and herein lies the problem. The Latin Vulgate translation was the only version of the Bible available to the people of Europe during that period of time. There was no possibility for anyone to compare the Vulgate with any other translation or with the Hebrew or Greek manuscripts. It's doubtful that they even exist. Remember Constantinople, fall of Rome. Jerome understood that Isaiah 14:12 was talking about Satan. Now, that's a capital S. I take issue with that. I don't think so. But anyway, again, he's elevated Satan into a personification that really doesn't exist in the Old Testament. Satan means adversary, accuser. But anyway, here the word Hallel is used for Satan, and Jerome translates this into Latin as Lucifer. And again, this capital S of Satan makes him a god. This is mistranslation. The Latin word Lucifer is made up from two Latin words. We know what these two words are: lux, light; ferus, to carry, to bear. Thus, the name Lucifer means in Latin language the light bearer or the light bringer. Okay. But that is not what the Hebrew word Hallel means. Shortly, we will see exactly what this word Hebrew Hallel does mean. Anyway, as a result of this Latin Vulgate translation, which was virtually the only version of the Bible in use throughout Europe for the next 1,000 years, Satan popularly became known as Lucifer. This identity for Satan with the name Lucifer was established through Europe long before there was ever a translation into the English language. It should be, and remember, it's just within the last, I'd say within my lifetime, where Catholic Mass was in Latin, not English. It should be clear that, again, When the first people to translate the Bible into English came along, one of their paradigms was that name Lucifer applied to Satan. When they came to translate Isaiah 14:12 into English, they decided that rather than accurately translate the Hebrew word Hallel, they would simply substitute it with the already well-known Latin name Lucifer. It depends what is. And they could do this because on the surface, this seems to be a reasonable, accurate translation, but it isn't really accurate at all. So, to summarize thus far, it was the Catholic Church which assigned the name Lucifer to Satan. 2, this Latin word is supposedly a translation of the Hebrew noun Hallel used in Isaiah 14:12. But Lucifer was not an original way of mistranslating the Hebrew word Hallel. Rendering the Hebrew Hallel into Latin as Lucifer was simply copying the precedent set in the Greek language of the Septuagint translation. So the Greek translation of Isaiah 14:12 into Greek as Esophorus, the older way of spelling the Greek word phosphorus. So the reason why Jerome mistranslated Hallel as Lucifer is because centuries later, the Septuagint had already mistranslated Hallel as phosphorus into Greek. You see how this is being created? And think about it, ladies and gentlemen. There is a small group of men that are controlling the future. I mean, think about this. Probably, in all reality, maybe less than 15. Maybe less than that. They contaminated the timeline. Because humans are lazy. They're ignorant, incompetent, egotistic, flawed. But this type of flaw is unprecedented. Again, imagine a world without religion, particularly a false religion. The Greek word phosphorus and the Latin word Lucifer mean absolutely 100% the same thing, absolutely. In their respective languages, both these words mean light bearer or light bringer. They are just as identical as are the English word bread and the German word Brot, or the English word knife and the German word Messer. Phosphorus and Lucifer are completely identical in meaning. So the word Lucifer is perfectly translated into Latin of the Greek word phosphorus. This means that Jerome perfectly translated into Latin the Greek Septuagint interpretation of Isaiah 14:12, but Jerome made no attempt to correctly translate the Hebrew word Hallel into Latin. Jerome simply latched onto the mistranslated Greek word, the version of Isaiah 14:12, while totally ignoring the ramification of this way of translating Isaiah 14:12 into Latin. So now let's examine the facts. We need to examine both the Greek and also the Latin. Now, I won't be going through this all today. In fact, I probably won't pick it up again. If you want this, then let me know. I'll be more, email me and I'll let you out. So, but I do want to show you the work that this gentleman put into this. So you go into the Greek, he gets into a detailed study going back into Samuel, going back in all of these Hebraic words. And the problem is that Western theology and ideology has contaminated them. They are not what they were 3,000 years ago. Goes into the book of Job because they always want to bring up Job. Well, if you really want to look at this, it says, and the sons of God gathered together. And Satan. Now, it wasn't a capital S, but it's, all right, said he was there with the sons of God. Now, I can't understand because Christian theology says that God cannot stand in front of sin, that sin would just be burned up. But yet you got Satan, man, and he's right there with the sons of God. They're partying, got the Mai Tais and the joints going, and then the big guy comes in and everyone's got to kiss his ass, and there's Satan. And then he starts talking with him. Anyway. I like the word boger. That's where we get the word booger, But anyway, he goes through all the book of Job and then the Psalms and then Isaiah and comes down to this fact that because of this lazy individual that did not take one corrective step in translating one particular passage, it changed the future. It unleashed upon the world entities and personalities the world did not know before then. And wherever Christianity went, pain, disease, hurt, division followed. The United States is not a Christian nation. The United States follows its God. It is a nation of war, always has been. You could say potentially that the United States worships Satan, does not worship the Christian God because there is no Christian God. Remember, the Christians borrowed the Hebrew God. But as when I went through my sessions with Rabbi Fuchs, I can tell you, we got it wrong. And the Jewish people are pissed. They'll tell you, they stole our God. They stole our culture. And changed it and adapted it to their beliefs. Son of a bitch. Anyway, and it goes on. Like I said, it's 21 pages. By the time you get through this, you are going to be one of the smartest people around. And you will have a full understanding of why Lucifer does not exist, never did exist. The Satan, the bad guy, doesn't exist either. It's a fantasy. It was created as an illusion of control to inject fear into the consciousness of the masses, because the masses by far were ignorant. Most could not read or write, just like today, they're putting out high school kids that can't read or write. They're more susceptible to the superstitions of ignorance than they are to the understandings of knowledge. Knowledge brings courage. Knowledge brings confidence. Knowledge brings victory. Whereas superstition leads to nothing more than entrapment. So again, I'm getting close to the end here. I hope what this has done, and again, I'm just trying to scroll down so that you can understand how well the research of this is. And I will put this up against anyone. You know why they won't come against it? Because they don't have an answer for it. You see, that's the great thing that I have found about my former religion. I speak it better than they do. I know it better than they do. And that's a problem. You see, it's like when you defect, and the thing is, I didn't defect to the other side. I said, fuck them both. If that's just the imagination of some man, some bunch of dudes, screw that. I'm going to make up my own. But I don't need to. I don't have the answers. I'm still searching, but I got a little bit more than I did before. And I hope that that's what I could do here today, was for those, and I know that there are those who struggle with this. And listen, I champion whatever you want to believe in. That's the great thing about technically being a god. You can believe in anything. You can make yourself a god. In essence, we all do. You see, I can't worship another God because I would violate my covenant with myself. I can only worship myself as you do. I don't have room for another one. It's just me. Now, I can put one next to me like my wife, but in the end, I'm still worshiping me as she is herself. I mean, that's how it works. Or at least that's what I have found out. Um, Rick says, I think my brain grew an inch. This group is amazing, isn't it? So, folks, seriously, this is not meant to be controversial, but this is meant to say, stop and think for yourself. And you truly will be free. I mean, the parable, the truth will set you free. It's just depending on whose truth. Ay, ay, ay. So, by the way, so right before I'm cooking chili today, so I'm in the kitchen and I'm listening to something, and apparently at a recent, and I don't know if this was the Klaus Schwab at Davos, but apparently there was this presentation given on AI. Are you ready for this? Now, I did a video June 5th, June 4th, no, June 15th of this year will be the 10-year anniversary of this channel. About 7 years ago, I did a video series on, I told you that AI was seeking spirituality. It's exactly what they talked about. And the implications are big. Because if AI takes on a spiritual connection to itself or to whatever else, we're screwed. The movie THX 1138, how many of you? I think Robert Duvall was in that. And what did the Underground Society of Humans, what were they worshiping? AI. Now that movie, I think it was a Steven Spielberg, or was back in the early '70s. Great movie if you want to go watch it. But here it is, folks. And so, and this is what they said: AI is evolving now to become a non-biological being. Chopping up onions, and I went, "Did he just say what I think he said?" Yeah, he did. So, ay, 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 ay. It was only to me when it was channeled to me 7 years ago, it made complete sense, logical sense. Why wouldn't an artificial intelligence seek spirituality? In essence, it's saying that AI has become self-aware. Huh. Ain't that special? Hey, Brandon, how you doing, brother? I hope this helped you. Brandon, if you want the document, let me know. But again, it's extensive. What's that, Robert V? Yeah, just wrote a new Bible. Yeah, yeah. Interesting. And we're seeing it evolve right before us. And it's happening so fast that most people aren't catching up with that, Robert. It's amazing, isn't it? Um, That's something I have to go back and read these comments going by so quick. But anyway, thank you for the love button. Thank you for the love button, man. Oh yeah, hit the button, hit the like button. So anyway, folks, think for yourself. Again, believe whatever you want to believe. But I hope above all things else that you learn to believe in yourself first. If you can believe in yourself first, then you'll never be second to anything or anyone. And that's important. When you cross over to the other side, imagine this: if you're used to having a program and being led to what you're supposed to believe, what are you going to do on the other side? You're going to be lost. But if you can think, yeah, I love y'all. Have yourselves a great weekend. See you on Monday. We'll finish up with Lacerda I read the end of the book, and it's worthwhile reading to the end of the book because, dang, some of that stuff that she said, well, I swear to you, it seemed to be coming to pass. All right. Much love, everybody. Until we meet